Welcome to the South Burbs Hitmen podcast with your hosts, Joe Mandel, Steven Zimmerman, and Vinnie Parisi. We're bringing you the White Sox coverage you need from the perspective of true Southsiders. Grab your Comiskey dog with an ice-cold beer and meet us in section 155. Everyone get on your feet for your South Burbs Hitmen!
That ball hit deep. Way back. You can put it on the board. Yes.
Jimenez in the air. Left field. He's your hero tonight. Thanks, Cubs.
Over the head of Jenks. Uribe charges, throws. Out. And the White Sox have won the World Series. Alexei. Yes. Yes! 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 History! A perfect game by Mark Burley, and what an unbelievable play by Dwayne Wise.
First pitch starts now. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of South Burbs Hitman. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mandel, and I'm joined by my White Sox brothers in arms. I'm talking about Vinnie Parisi and Steven Zimmerman. Gentlemen, how you feeling after this lackluster week of White Sox baseball?
Stupid, dumb, horrible, every negative possible emotion you can feel, because, I am an optimistic person by nature. I know it might not seem like it on Twitter.com sometimes because I was so frustrated last summer. Every single day, it seemed like even when they won, I felt nitpicky. And I always say, my hockey following thinks I'm the most optimistic person of all time, and my baseball following thinks I'm the most negative person of all time. But really, I just try to call it like I see it. I legitimately came into this season thinking they were going to be this decent team, bounce back year. I don't know about the Yankees or the Astros or anything like that. It could. You look at the rest of the schedule for April though, and you're like, this team could be 20-30, and nobody would bat an eye. But it's one of those things. I feel hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, whatever Stephen A. said. It's been tough. I'm been dead ass wrong since that first series in Houston.
I hear you, man. Zim, I know you haven't had a chance to watch as many games. You're a busy man, but you can pick up the overall sense of things. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on the excitement scale?
It's amazing how this team has gotten me to a 2 so early in the season.
Oh, geez.
Part of the reason that I've been so unable to watch these games is not necessarily because I'm busy, but it's because they're not worth making time for. So yeah, I'm busy, but I don't know, if they were worthwhile, I would make the time to go watch them. I would get my crap done and then sit down and watch a Sox game. But they're about worth the 10 minutes I dedicate every day to watch the condensed game. And that's about it. Meanwhile, though, I'm watching this guy just skyrocket in value over the last week. This is my Jake Burger 1-of-1 card.
Oh, yeah.
And, man, that guy is on a freaking tear. It's a shame the rest of the team is so far behind him,
I have a feeling we may end up talking about him again later in the show, but it has been fun to watch. Friend of the show. For those of you who have not seen the episode, earlier this offseason, about 2 months ago, we had Jake and his wife, Ashlyn, on. Highly recommend you check out that interview on YouTube or anywhere you can find podcasts. But we're kind of in a therapy session today, and we have a special guest to join us today, Vinny, during the show. One of our favorite members of White Sox Twitter and from Locked On White Sox, Nick Murawski, in the house. Going to hang out with us, talk White Sox today. Nick, thanks for being with us, my friend.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I don't know what I can provide. I could try to provide some input, try to stay positive, but also just kind of be real with where this team is at right now, which after 16 games, exactly the same place record-wise as the 2022 White Sox. And nobody wants to hear it, but when you go back and you take a look at what happened or didn't happen in the offseason, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it really does. And I'm just curious, Nick, this is just coming off the cuff, but I've been watching this team and trying to find the difference between Pedro Grifal's White Sox and Tony La Russa's, and I don't see that much of a difference. I don't know if the other two guys on the show agree with me, but I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Initially, I was very happy with his consistency with the lineups. I mean, he was putting consistent lineups. I felt like the first 5, 6, 7 games, of course, Grandal's not going to catch every single game, but wasn't going to Romy and Hanser quickly. Some of those classic Sunday lineups that we saw from TLR, and again, health mattered. We had a pretty healthy team early on. So I like that consistency. Now, I think, there's a honeymoon phase with Pedro Grifol. I don't know if that's running out. I think it feels like it is. But the way he's operated the bullpen at the beginning, it was like, I don't know if he knew what he had in some of these bullpen arms. And I think slowly he's trying to figure out. There's a couple guys that just feel like, they're without homes, without Crochet and without Hendricks. Like they're trying to go closer by committee. That's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, there are certain defined roles in a bullpen where you've got like a 7th or 8th guy, an inning guy that's going to bridge the gap to a closer. Like they know that role. That's a mindset. They know it. It's a difficult thing to do. So with this bullpen in flux, and lately, I don't think he's been managing it very well. He's been putting guys in high leverage situations that should not be in that position. But also, there are guys that just can't flat out perform in the bullpen. So now here we are, 6-10. What's the difference between Grifol and TLR? I mean, the difference is just Grifol doesn't have the credentials. Isn't that the old line? Like the difference between Renteria and La Russa. So Grifol sold me though in the offseason. He says the right things. He says it's urgency. April is not early. You win in April. They count the same as in September. You can't win a championship in April, but you might lose one. He says all the right things, but I'm sorry, the results just aren't there right now.
No, they're not. And Vinny, I hadn't had a chance to throw this question by you, but I'm just curious your thoughts on what's going on here. And I know it felt different to me at the top, but it feels the same right now. Maybe it's just because of the lack of energy, the lack of consistency. I don't know. I'm just curious your thoughts.
Yeah, early in the season when we first started, it felt like the vibes were different. And I think I wrote an article about that. Like one of the big differences between Tony La Russa and Pedro Grifol early were like it seemed like players were excited to be playing baseball, and it seemed like everybody was having a good time, ready to rock. But it became apparent that the bullpen management wasn't too far off. And the starting lineups were better at first, as Nick mentioned, and then they started to taper off. But then they got unhealthy. We're missing Moncada for long stretches of time. We're missing Eloy Jimenez for long periods of time, in a row there. And then you start to lose games. Well, I don't care if Ronald McDonald is your coach. You're not going to have good vibes and be happy to be there if you're losing a bunch of games in a row. They haven't won twice in a row yet this season. And people keep saying, oh, they haven't won a series yet in the season. They haven't won a series yet this season. I think it's even more disgusting that they haven't won 2 in a row yet. And that to me is like something that just can't, you got to string brutal wings together.
Well, and they're a team that has to win on the margins. They are not going to out hit their pitching issues. So one of the things that I was telling people, this team's going to be better prepared. They're going to have their fundamentals down. We're finding that isn't the case. You have guys not covering second base with incoming throws from the outfield. Folks aren't backing up bases, blown pickoff moves. So this team can't afford those little mistakes, right? Because the pitching isn't clicking. The bullpen's a mess, dead last in all of baseball. And offensively, we're just not being able to hit our way out of the problems. You couple that with all the injuries, you've got to play fundamentally sound baseball.
It's been eye-opening for sure. And we'll talk about this again later in the show, but I had to bring it up because it fits into what we're talking about. Our buddy Yasmani Grandal had a great week. He hit .333, 7 for 21. How many runs did he score this week? 1. He had 10 total bases, and he scored 1 time. I think that's pretty eye-opening for how bad this team was with the bats this week, and they're especially bad with runners in scoring position. It's it's infuriating. It's like they can get hits when no one else is hitting, but not when you got guys on base.
Yeah, when you watch baseball around the league, even the bad teams, you're always seeing like their stars produce. This guy's hitting this home run, and Luis Ariz hits for the cycle, and Rafael Devers on a bad Red Sox team leads the league in home runs, I think, right now. Like, the stars come to play for a lot of these teams. With the White Sox, it just seems so like, oh, whatever. Every now and then, Luis Robert's going to look like an MVP candidate, but then he'll go cold for a month. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, you're not going to string together wins if you perform like that. So,
and I would say for the Robert point, Vinny, it's like, lay off the sliders. When is he going to figure out he can't hit certain pitches? I don't know what it is with certain guys on this team. If they don't have the scouting report, which I thought was going to change in the offseason, I thought the coaching staff was going to get these guys better prepared so there's not as much guessing when an arm gets on the mound. But boy, some of those swings by whether it's Andrus or by Robert, and it just happened recently in this Baltimore series, those are not competitive swings. Absolutely not. And I know he's not going to walk. Robert's not going to walk, but still, like, some discipline at the plate, please.
Yeah, none of that this week. That's for sure.
No, all over the board, the Sox have just been a general disappointment, and it makes you wonder, where it stems from, because they've changed certain faces, but it continues to happen year after year. And you want to know, like, you want to be able to point the finger, but the only guy you kind of can point the finger at right now is the same guy we pointed the finger at last year. He's just got a different name and number now, and that's Pedro Grifol. So we can talk about it a little more. We've already been talking about it all kinds, but let's go ahead and get into the segment, Pedro's Pen.
Yeah, there were a lot of interesting decisions this week. I know we've kind of alluded to some of them, but I mean, is there anything worse than his bullpen management for the week, guys? I lean to say that there's a lot of bad, especially, at least for me, his handling of Aaron Bummer this week. Clearly, Aaron didn't have it. Especially, what was that, yesterday, that he gave up a lot of those runs? I think that was yesterday's game. He doesn't seem to know these guys enough to know when to yank them. Is it just me, guys? Am I the only one that feels like he doesn't have a grip on how to manage a bullpen? Anyone, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, Saturday was a rough game for Aaron Bummer, and then he followed it up with Sunday, and Jason Benetti made some comment on Sunday. Boy, rough day for Aaron Bummer. And I was like, just this day, just this Sunday? No. It's been happening for a long period of time. Grifol going with Jake Diekman in some high leverage situations. I think it was on Friday in the first game of the Baltimore series. Diekman's a mess. Kelly's obviously hurt. Graveman's hot and cold. Middleton was a guy I was really happy with in Minnesota.
Good.
And I think Grifol went to him in some tough situations, but Middleton, didn't kind of produce the same way that he produced in that Minnesota series. Lopez seems like a guy that if it's not a save situation, he's lost his focus and he's all over the place. But yeah, I think Grifol has made some mistakes, but I also do think there are guys that just aren't doing the job. And he's like, I don't know who to turn to, and I don't know which version of you I'm going to get on a game-to-game, series-to-series basis.
True. It's frustrating because the consistency is not there. And Zim, go ahead.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is it's frustrating because the only thing the Sox have been over the last 6 years is inconsistent. We go back 4 managers now, and we're talking the same thing every single year. And at a certain point, you got to start looking at who's hiring the managers. And we talked about this a lot last season before the manager search started. And when that search started, we all had these concerns of look, Ventura couldn't do it. Renteria couldn't do it. La Russa couldn't do it, and he's a Hall of Famer. Now we got this rookie this rookie manager handling this team who's brand new with this clubhouse. The only thing he's had of these guys before was scouting reports from when he was on the opposition. So now he's coming into this situation and he's got to figure it out. And the front office did not do an adequate job of loading him up. They did a better job loading up La Russa and Renteria than they have Grifol so far. And it's frustrating because, again, like I said, introing this, you want to point the finger somewhere. And right now it feels like the only place we can point is to the manager that seems to be mishandling this on a day in and day out basis. But He's working with what he's got. And it's just neglectful on the part of the front office to not do more to right the ship with these guys, to look at this situation and basically say, this rookie manager is going to be fine. We plug the holes at right field with a rookie. We plug the hole at second base with a 36-year-old. We don't have a closer. We're missing our best young arm in the bullpen, but he'll be all right. It's how much can he really be accountable for at this point?
Yeah.
We bitched about La Russa, and now we see the same thing with Grufol. So,
I mean, Rick Hahn's seat's got to be flaming hot on fire right now because, first off, the lack of moves in the offseason. And secondly, I don't know if you guys saw this, but he spoke to the media. I think it was yesterday or the day before. And he said, "Oh, it's April. It's too early to judge a team on their performance." It's like the hell they are. As Nick said at the top of the show, these games mean the same now that they do in September.
You know, I want to say that Rick Hahn's job should be absolutely in jeopardy. It should have been in jeopardy. I guess my big thought is what are the expectations of his boss, Jerry Reinsdorf? If Jerry Reinsdorf truly doesn't believe or think or want anything more than a serviceable team that maybe makes him money, well, then Hahn's doing his job. Okay. Hahn is taking whatever money that Jerry Reinsdorf gave him and putting a team together. All right. Now, if Jerry has larger expectations, then I don't think Hahn would have been around for this long. I really don't. I think Hahn does Jerry's bidding. He shuts his mouth. He does what Jerry wants him to do. And Hahn's job is absolutely safe. Now, Grufol is Hahn's hire, right? So, I mean, this would be an interesting situation if this completely goes belly up, which again, it's, 16 games in the season, but what happens with Hahn? Like, this was the guy, I let you pick your guy, and this is what happened. So I threw a lot out there, but it always comes back to Jerry in my mind.
It does always come back to Jerry. And as everyone's seen, there's a sign right off 31st Street on the highway. It says, "Sell the team, Jerry." I think we're all looking forward to that day, although it'll probably be to someone else that's not on our list. But as Travis in the chat says, same results with the Bulls. It's actually strangely accurate. Those Jerry Reinsdorf owned teams.
And I mentioned this before, and I don't know if it was on the show or in private conversation with you guys, but Jerry Reinsdorf is 87 years old. You really think he's that concerned with winning a championship at this point in time? Or is he just trying to, get by until whatever he's looking forward to at this point in time, the golf course, the retirement home, whatever. The guy's worth a lot of freaking money. He can do literally whatever he wants. What does he care if both of these teams have won him championships? Both the teams that he owns, he's gotten where he wanted to go. He's seen the promise.
Winningest active owner. That's impressive. Championship wise.
Right.
I was going to say, is it?
Championship wise.
But I mean, that's something for him to stand on and hold his head up high, be proud of. And maybe that's enough for him. So I know this is Pedro's pen, but we've gone quite all the way up the ladder.
It's all part of the same cloth. But I think one thing we have to talk about too is there were rumblings this offseason that the White Sox were going to be sold in some capacity. I know it kind of got quieted down, but I feel like there's got to be, there's smoke, there's fire. So maybe if things go belly up this season, maybe he finally pulls the trigger, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the optimist in me. But we're going to stay on the unoptimistic side of things, and we're going to dive into a week of hot crap in what we like to call and pick out the worst performance in this week's Adam Dud of the week.
You suck!
You suck.
Stupid. Lousy. No excuse.
What a dud. What a total dud.
Yeah, there were a couple duds this week, and I think there's just a handful to choose from. I have a bunch of stats pulled for a handful of guys, assuming that we're all going to pick probably from the same cloth here, but I will let our established guest go first. So, Nick, curious if you have a performance this week that you thought was just absolutely atrocious.
Oh, I don't want to. I don't want to do this necessarily because I've heard that this guy is just, he's a great guy personally. And I know that he gets put in a situation that he shouldn't be put in, but he's also a Major League Baseball player that apparently worked really hard on getting better at this position in the offseason. And I know, again, the front office didn't do him well, didn't do Pedro Grifol well. And Grifol has to put him out there to get his lefty power bat. But Gavin Sheets in right field in that Twins game was beyond confusing to me. Why he was even out there in the game to begin with when you needed the best defense probably possible behind Lucas Giolito, who's been struggling. You're trying to win a series here in Minnesota. And Oscar Colas looked really good the previous day, I believe on Tuesday. Okay. He's not showing me like gold glove stuff, but the bar is really low for right fielders for the White Sox. And he looked like he was able to manage target field really well on Tuesday, made a couple nice throws. He's a lefty bat. There was a righty on the mound. So it's not the handedness stuff. Why Gavin Sheets was in that lineup. So I guess it's on Grifol and it's on Gavin Sheets, but come on. I mean, that was a routine fly ball there. And I know also, Andrew Vaughn had a bobble at first base, but that was absolutely unacceptable what Sheets did out there. And I was just speechless, and again, people coming at me, well, it's not his fault. He shouldn't be out there. I'm sorry.
You can't make that play.
If you're actively working on getting better in the offseason and where your growing edges are, and that's what you turned in, I'm sorry. It has to be called out.
And not to mention when he played first in that one game, he had a terrible outing. I think he had 2 or 3 errors, and
it's
he
a
cut
Billy
off
Buckner situation. Yeah.
And he cut off the throw to home that he would have been out by a mile, and then he cut off the throw. I mean, Gavin Sheets definitely cost us at least one game. You could argue possibly 2 this week. So I like the pick, Nick. It's unfortunate. Of course, we've had Gavin on the show, on Vinny's show and friend of the program, but I think he himself would even admit that he needs to be better.
Well, I mean, his bat plays. We saw it on Sunday. We need that power lefty bat. Again, I heard he's an awesome dude. I'd love to talk with him, but I'm sorry. That was just I can't have that.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it.
Nick,
man.
you can guest host when I get him.
Okay, I'd love that. I'd appreciate that.
For sure. That can be worked out because him and I were DMing right before the season. He was pissed off that I left him out of my starting lineup for opening day. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong," and he ended up not proving me wrong because he wasn't in the lineup on opening day. But neither was Oscar Colas. So,
that's true.
He's a good dude. Did Jay Kuda tweet today? He's the only player. He's one of a handful of players in the league, like 5 or 6 guys with a 300 batting average and has more walks than strikeouts. So the bat, as you mentioned, it does play, but that was an atrocious play in the outfield.
Yeah, rough week for Gavin, especially defensively.
Okay, so here's a bit of a hot question for you. And maybe it's better for guaranteed take later in the show, but Sheets has been pretty bad in the outfield. Would you rather have him or Eloy out there, considering their bats and their defensive abilities?
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think I'd rather have Eloy out there personally.
I would go Gavin because Gavin, if he takes he won't hurt himself. Less likely to hurt himself.
That's where I'm going too. Is in that scenario, I think I would say Gavin because I believe Eloy would hurt himself, and we really need his bat, in that DH spot. So, and that's a serious question that we have to have as White Sox fans, but we shouldn't be having that in 2023. But here we are.
Yeah, that's wild, isn't it? Oh, gotta love it. But Zim, I'll toss to you next. Who is your Adam Dud of the week?
It's tough. I got a coin flip. Flip a coin.
You doing it for real?
It's tails. I got Aaron Bummer as my player, my dud of the week. Aaron Bummer has just been bad. I mean, he's just an exemplification of the bullpen as a whole this week, with the exception of maybe one guy. They've all just been so bad, and Bummer has been an absolute bummer. And I know we've used that pun many times. we've used that that pun so many times, but it's so well deserved sometimes. And this week is one of them. 2 innings pitched, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 hits, 2 strikeouts. It's not quite as busy as Jose Ruiz was out on the mound, but it's pretty close. And we all saw what happened to Ruiz.
Do you think it's a testament of pretty much zero spring training? I mean, he threw maybe 3 innings in Cactus League play, and they kept pushing the fact that he's going to be ready for opening day. He's going to be ready. And I know he was throwing, on, backfields and all that kind of stuff and getting work in, but he looks like a guy that just has not had a lot of time to perfect himself after getting hurt and coming back from that injury.
Well, look at the guys who got time during spring training and look at the guys who didn't. And it's pretty clear and evident which ones of them are succeeding and who isn't. Because with this new rule put in place, I almost feel like the White Sox did not take the pitch clock seriously enough when it comes to their pitchers, right? The batters seem prepared for it. They all seem ready to go. But the pitchers, every single one of them is just gasping up on the mound.
Well,
none of them seem conditioned.
Yeah, when Bummer's pitching, he looks like he's rushing. Like he doesn't look like he's comfortable up there.
These guys look rushed, and they look, like I said, the conditioning doesn't seem to be there. And I'm sorry to cut you off, Joe, but I was going
to say I think that's on Ethan Katz too.
I mean, this is the 3rd show of the season for us, and it's the 3rd time we've mentioned the pitch clock affecting these pitchers in some way or another. And maybe that's something we could talk about in Pedro's pen, because that's a direct correlation of your coaching staff not having your pitchers ready to go for the season.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and I also think Bummer needs everything perfect for him. He's one of those guys who it's all about location and you locating the sinker ball, having hitters beat it into the ground. And I think part of what's become an issue for Bummer is in his career, he's played on this White Sox team that likes to kick baseballs into the other team's dugout, and that hasn't always played in his favor. And I'm sure he's not the most confident out there when it comes to his stuff, because he knows what's behind him. He knows exactly what types of pitches he has to make. And he's, if Bummer was on, who's a stout defense? The Baltimore Orioles. If Bummer was on the Baltimore Orioles, I honestly think he'd be a top 10 reliever, a top 20 reliever. His confidence would be through the roof. He'd know he'd have guys out there making the plays that he needs him to make when they beat it into the ground. You're not going to have frickin', Romy Gonzalez kicking it. And, we love Jake, but he's not the greatest defensive third baseman. There was a couple balls he booted last year when Bummer was on the mound. There was one specific one against the Dodgers when he was pitching. I'm like, if Bummer was on a different team, I think things would probably be a little bit different for him, but he's not.
This year, though, with him, just a few games ago, 4 straight pitches, and he walked a guy. And he is missing there. His command's out there, and when he misses middle, and it is getting smoked. I mean, and these guys, the opposition, with 5 series now into the season, and we are getting it's an absolute PhD, a master's class in opposition hitting our mistakes. When we make a mistake, they are all over it. And I haven't seen that much from the Sox, and bullpen are making mistakes. And Bummer, boy, when he misses, no one's getting fooled on that sweeper or whatever he throws when it's middle.
That's it.
Those Orioles know how to draw a walk. They have a good eye.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, that looked to be their scouting report against the Sox, was wait for them to make a mistake, because they will.
That's 26 walks.
Bummer would love to face Robert.
Walks. Yeah. But Robert will sometimes hit a mistake. And I feel like one of those sweepers of, I'd like to see that matchup. That maybe they should do that on an off day or something. Just kind of mess around.
I like it. Vinny, what do you got, buddy, for your Adam Dudd of the week?
I'm going to pick Eloy. I think Eloy has the talent. We've seen it time and time again, and I think I've mentioned this once a week, I feel like. I think he has the talent to be one of the best hitters in the league, and he just does not do it. And maybe that's just bad judgment of talent on my part. I know injuries have played a lot to do with it, but he was awesome for the Dominican Republic in the World Baseball Classic. I honestly thought he was going to come in here this year and really take this offense by storm. Luis Roberts actually doing more, even though he's a dud of the week candidate for this week. His season total numbers look pretty good. But he's doing everything I thought Jimenez would do, and he doesn't have to worry about playing the field. As Zim pointed out, he hasn't played in the outfield yet this season. He's only been a designated hitter. Now, granted, he's only played like 7 games, maybe even less than that at this point. But 1 for 12, 83 batting average, 1 run batted in, 6 strikeouts, 1 run scored. That is just not the Eloy we know. Like, I was literally sitting there during the intro while we were watching the intro today, and that call of Benetti against the Cubs. And I'm like, I would have put every penny I owned in 2019 that the White Sox would win at least 1 chip. They'd at least appear in 1 World Series with this group, because the vibes were high. Eloy hit 31 home runs by accident in 2019. He had 2 stints on the IL that year, and he
only
still
120
hit
something games.
Yeah, and he was, if he would have played the whole year, he probably would have jacked 40. And Giolito came in 6th for the Cy Young Award, and all this stuff. And I'm like, Eloy, what happened? What happened to this team? It's so bad. I'm low right now.
They peaked in 2019.
I mean, 2020 was the year. 2020 was really 2020. The year.
Fair.
Yeah, they were really good in 2020. They
2020
were
is just
Silver Slugger. So
short,
the
bubble year, right?
Yeah, but that, but that was they could have done it because it was a short season and they stayed healthy for a 60-game season. Abreu with his MVP and
Silver Sluggers, Gold Gloves.
Yeah,
but then it's the same problem that we've seen from the Sox for however many years. They go up against. I don't even want to say that the A's were necessarily better than them that year, but the A's weren't competent.
No, they weren't.
And the Sox just seem to struggle against teams that are around as good as them or better.
And they couldn't hit Liam Hendricks either. So
they went out and signed him.
Exactly.
Probably the best thing to come out of that season.
Absolutely.
The only positive that came out of that playoff series was Carlos Rodon. He got killed, but his stuff looked like it was there. It was like, if this guy can spend the offseason like kind of mastering this stuff that he seems to have back, then I think he could be a pretty good pitcher, and that ended up happening. That was the one good thing that came out of that playoff series.
I'm rooting for him this year. I'm happy. I'm hoping
velocity
when he comes
was
back,
high.
he's healthy.
Yeah, 100%.
But I got a dud of my own, and this is a guy who I've been raising the flag all off season. I called him the American League Rookie of the Year. I predicted that, and he's been pretty good. I'm not complaining, but he had a really rough week this week. And Oscar Colas, 2 for 11, batting, brutal, 1 RBI, which was the walk-off, ironically, the only win against the Orioles. He didn't score a single run. He struck out 4 times. He had some really bad at-bats this week. I'm sure you guys have seen as many of them as I have. I think he had 1 4-pitch at-bat, 3 or 4-pitch at-bat, where he just had like 3 horrible swings. I know this is normal for a rookie, kind of going up and down the roller coaster, but Oscar, you get my dud of the week, unfortunately. Rooting for you this week to turn it around. Maybe you can do it starting against the Phillies with a doubleheader tomorrow, by the way. This game got rained out today. I didn't mention that. Or not rained out, snowed out, whatever you want to call it, colded out. They probably could have played, Nick. I know you're in Bridgeport, but
we had like flurries and just some massive winds. I mean, I've sat through those types of games. Let's not kid ourselves. But with the forecast on Tuesday, 58 and sunny, I feel like okay, we'll move this. But to your point, Joe, on Colas, I think you're right on. I think he puts a lot of pressure on himself, understandably, at this point. There's a lot of expectations on him. I don't think I've looked at him, though, in the 16 games and have said, man, he's really out of place. I think, he is struggling, especially with certain breaking pitches in like that. Yeah. That scouting report is out on him now, and they're going to keep feeding him those types of pitches until he can prove the opposition wrong. What I heard about him, and I'm sure you guys read about it in the offseason, was like he's a quick study. Like he will figure out what he lacks at, and he will try to work to get better. So now let's see if he can make those adjustments. It's all about making adjustments. So I'm curious moving forward if he could now adjust to what pitchers are doing to him.
Yeah, we had Phil Selig on the show in the offseason from Cuba Dugout, and he said he's, one of the most natural raw hitters that he's seen, and that he does that quick work adjustment. It's kind of like the opposite of what Luis Robert is, because Robert, he is hot for a minute and then he falls ice cold. But Colas, statistically, for his work in the Dominican Republic, definitely was one of those guys. It was a quick study. So hopefully that's the case. And, for the honorable mention while we're here, I think we have to talk about Luis Roberts' week. He was pretty brutal. Statistics don't lie. 3 for 24. Somehow managed to still score 3 runs, only 1 ribby, which was on a home run, and 1 walk. So Luis did a lot of swinging at pitches in the dirt this week. I know what he's working on this week for sure.
That 1 home run and RBI came early in the week as well. They came, I think, on Tuesday. So you take that 1 game out and all of a sudden this line looks a whole lot worse. And it's just an explanation of what's been happening across this whole team this week.
And side note about this, Zim and I were talking before we went on the air. The Sox didn't attempt a single stolen base this week.
Right.
And they were
And
leading. Weren't they leading the league in that? Yeah.
They were second place. We talked about it on last week's show because it's something that was a strong suit for them earlier in this season. Adley Rutschman, he'll gun down a runner, as well as who did they play in Minnesota? I don't remember their catcher, but Minnesota they do not allow a whole lot of stolen bases either. So, I mean, it was probably by design. The fact that they didn't have many base runners didn't help that very much either, considering, the 4 runs they scored in yesterday's game all came at once. So no base runners the rest of the game. Things like that keep happening to this team.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. And we can talk about those good things because there was some good offense and there's a couple good stories stemming out of the South Side this week. So why don't we do that when we dive into this week's Put It on the Board Player of the Week. I think everyone knows who the big name story, feel-good story of the week is, but there's a few of them this week on the White Sox. But, Nick, I'll let you take your swing at your first pick here for the player that lit up the scoreboard for you this week. It could be on the pitching, could be defense, could be offense, whatever you want.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna let you guys take the obvious one.
Sure.
You've got a personal connection, and I think you'll maybe come more from you. But I mean, maybe a dark horse. I was really impressed with Giolito's start in Minnesota. He had a rough go in Pittsburgh, and that's to just put it lightly. And obviously, that he's been hot and cold, and he turned in. It was just so unfortunate how it ended too. He deserved so much better from the White Sox offensively and defensively. But his stuff was working. He was mixing up eye levels like he should. He was nipping at corners. He wasn't middle with his 93 fastball. He had movement. That changeup was fluttering. I thought that was a great sign moving forward. And I expect a lot from him, in I think it's the second game he has on Tuesday against the Phillies. So that was a real promising thing for me. And I think it's something to build on, a confidence boost for Giolito.
Yeah, and when his changeup is working, it's one of the best pitches in baseball to watch. So it was encouraging to me too to see that finally doing what it's supposed to do. So hopefully we get some good stuff tomorrow in that doubleheader against the Phillies. Something's got to give. We got to win. Maybe we'll win our first series tomorrow, boys. How about that?
It could all happen. It could all happen on Tuesday. Yep.
I'm all
first
for
series,
that.
First time with 2 in a row.
Yep.
There you go. Tomorrow could be a good day. 2 for 1 ticket for that. If you guys can spend the day at the park, I can't, but I know a lot of people out there can. I wish. But all right, that's a great pick, Lucas Giolito. Love the optimism there. I'm feeling good about him too. Vinny, who is your Put It on the Board Player of the Week?
So I was super stoked to have. Why? It's funny. I wrote an article today, 3 players that need to start playing better for the White Sox to elevate their game as a team, and I included Nick's pick, Lucas Giolito. I went with Lance Lynn in addition to Giolito. I think those 2 need to be outstanding pitchers for this team to end up being a playoff team. And I included Andrew Benintendi, Benny Butt Cheeks, Benny Biceps, whatever podcast you listen to has a different nickname for him. He had a decent week this last week. 6 for 20, 300 batting average, 30 runs scored, 2 RBIs, 1 walk. Now, guys, that's not $75 million necessarily, but it's better than what it's been.
Yes.
So
throwing the defense too.
Forward.
Yes,
outstanding on defense.
Finally looks like he's up to speed. Yeah.
Yeah. So with a new team, underrated how the experience with Pedro Grifol. That's a guy who he's known, played under in Kansas City. So I think Benintendi, it's a huge step forward. I'm a Benintendi fan. I liked the signing. Does it make me want to vomit all over my equipment here that he's the highest paid player in Chicago White Sox history? Of course it does. But I really don't want to hold that against Benintendi. People are going to. There are going to be casuals that do that. This is the highest paid player. He's got 6 home runs. He's not a home run hitter. He's supposed to keep the line moving. I hate him batting third. That's a critique of Grifol I have. He's not been doing that as much lately, but when he does, that's a critique of mine. I don't know. I thought his week was good. I enjoyed watching him play. I hope he keeps it up because as the weather gets nicer in Chicago, he might be able to get a little more pop on his bat, and we'll see what ends up happening with his defense. But he plays a good left field. I'm happy to have Benintendi right now.
I love the choice, man. I love it. Hopefully we get big things from him moving forward. My pick is, filled with, in the offseason, a lot of drama behind this guy, but he's been really solid on the mound. And I got to say, I've been impressed with what I've seen from Mike Clevenger. For a third start in a row, 3 quality starts. He went 6 scoreless. He had the 5 walks, but he still had 5 strikeouts, only gave up 1 hit. So props to Mike Clevenger. He's putting it together out there. I'm just liking what I'm seeing from him on the mound. I don't love the 5 walks, but if he can get around the 5 walks, and he has been walking guys pretty consistently. Yeah, you get the 1 hit.
His stuff has got consistent movement. I mean, that's the thing that I have noticed with him is like he just doesn't have a flat start. I mean, he is constantly got movement on his pitches, and he nips at those corners. He goes after the corners, and he's able to execute. He might have touched 96 miles per hour in his most recent start, which is a great sign. Still maybe coming back from that TJ surgery.
Yeah, and for a guy coming back from that, he sure looks phenomenal at this point. So
it's funny. I almost wonder if he started watching like some Greg Maddux film or something in his comeback, because that's who he reminds me of on the mound this season. He's a lot more loud movement wise. Yeah. But as far as the way he pitches, it reminds me a lot of Maddux. He's working quickly. He is getting pretty low pitch counts. He'll have an inning that'll get him up, but outside of that inning, he's keeping it low, which I've been really impressed with. It's seeing him at like 50, 60 pitches before the 4th inning, and then all of a sudden you're in the 6th and he's only at 80, and you're like, he figured it out at some point in this game.
I've never seen him pitch in person. I never got to a Guardians game like here, like when he was there and when they were playing the White Sox. I just never gotten to see him. I think I'm going to go on Wednesday. I want to see what Mike Clevenger looks like on the mound with my own 2 eyes rather than just on the TV.
His motion, he got flagged in the offseason as one of those motions that needed to be reconfigured because it was going to be a balk, or was it going to be illegal or something. So he had to kind of reinvent himself. He's a guy you could steal on. I mean, there's no question about that. Like, he's an easy guy to steal on, and I don't know how he could change that with the way he's got his motion. But I mean, his results and what he's been able to give, compared to the rest of the starting staff, has been impressive.
Very impressive. I'm impressed, and hopefully that continues for the 4th straight start. Fingers crossed there. But Zim, what do you got for your putter on the board player of the week?
Yeah. Hey, just real quick before I get to that, I just do want to say I want to see how Clevenger continues on through the season. He already looks sweatier than Freddie Garcia out there on the mound, and it's April. So I'm very curious. Again, a guy that this pitch clock affects. I'm very curious to see how he holds up in the dog days of summer with that 93% humidity and 95-degree weather.
Hey, it's like getting the sticky stuff back though for him. Maybe he'll get more movement on his pitches.
Maybe. As far as my put it on the board player. I wanted to take Benintendi. I wanted to take Clevenger. So you guys have kind of left me grasping at straws here. So I guess I gotta go with Jake the Burger Bomber. He is lighting it up this season. The 3 home runs this week as they lead the team. I don't know how many he has on the season, at least 5. Again, leading the team in homers, leading the team offensively as a whole. He has, I believe, 4 of the 5 hardest hit balls by the White Sox this season. His 5 hardest hit balls so far this season are all at least 106 miles per hour.
He's got 4 homers, by the way.
He's only got 4. I must have missed one somewhere. But yeah, the contact he's making, I mean, he is squaring the ball up. His hardest hit ball was a double, and the other 4 are all of his home runs. Now that I'm looking at it, but I mean, exit velocity is a huge thing in today's MLB. And so for him to be squaring it up consistently, hitting the ball hard, hitting the ball far, and carrying a 350 average on top of it, you know, it's only been 8 games, but Eloy Jimenez has also only played in 8 games, and he has no home runs and a 161 average. So put them side by side, and that's what you got.
Burger hits mistakes. I mean, he'll take a hanging curveball and he'll put it out, in the outfield and left field, the blink of the eye. But he's a guy that is a perfect example of making adjustments. I mean, just recently he had a quote saying, "Look, the more times I see a right-handed pitcher, the more comfortable I'm getting." And that is where this is a bigger conversation. But again, what do you do? That's the big question. What do you do with him? How do you keep that bat in the lineup? Because he's not just a guy that you're going to put out there necessarily when there's a lefty on the mound, if he's getting more comfortable with also right-handed pitching. So I was really impressed offensively with of course, his Baltimore series for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The Sox seem to have a logjam at this 26 man, they can't seem to decide who the last guy on the roster is, and Burger is really forcing their hand. So it's really nice to see. It means that maybe we might see less of some other guys that have been kind of frustrating this season, like Hanser Alberto.
That's a guy that honestly, I know he's a Grifol guy. They've got a connection from the Kansas City days. And I think Pedro Grifol might have really pushed for Hanser, in the offseason, bring this guy in. He's a great clubhouse guy. I think he can give us something. And he won spring training. I mean, he had one heck of a spring training, but what do you really owe this guy? And if he's not producing, and we've seen what he can do with the glove recently, I mean, Burger can do that in the field, but Burger can also completely mash the ball. So that's where I'm wondering if Alberto's days might be numbered, especially now on this IL stint.
Burger didn't look too bad in the field. I just want to say that.
Hey, he talked to us. He was specifically working on his fielding, during the off season. It sounded like he wasn't as concerned about his bat and more about his glove. And I don't know that it's necessarily looking like it paid off or anything, but it's not looking like he's a slouch out there by any means. I will say Hanser Alberto seems like he's going to be this season's Larry Garcia. And I think we just kind of have to deal with that.
The problem with, I think you're right. I think honestly, Alberto, I was playing devil's advocate, but I do think Alberto's probably here for the long haul. The problem with that is, Larry Garcia was put in situations that he should have never been in because of all the injuries. And that puts him under a spotlight, and that magnifies the shortcomings, because you're not supposed to be an everyday guy, Larry Garcia, despite what Tony La Russa used to say. Now, with all the injuries we're having again, Hanser Alberto saw way too much playing time that he probably should have had, and that overexposes him for sure.
Yeah, the one game he played, he gave up. He allowed the Twins to take that 1-0 lead, and then he hits a 3-run home run, and people are acting like he's spring training Hanser Alberto again. And I'm like, okay, he hit the 1 home run. Larry Garcia hitting 1 home run earned him a 3-year deal that he wasn't ever going to even live out. That's just not how it works all the time. I almost would have rather the White Sox lose that game and not have that in the back of Hanser Alberto's pocket. What's the difference between 5-11 and 6-10 right now? It's just, I don't know. Maybe they'll make me eat my words by September, but having a guy like that on the roster over, Jake. If Jake gets sent down in a week and they activate Hanser Alberto, that's going to be enough to like turn some non-diehards.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Like guys like us, Nick, Zim, Joe, you're going to watch no matter what. We're weirdos. But the people who invest some time or maybe some money in this team, they're not going to put up with that. I don't know.
There are a lot, though. There are a lot that are off already. I'm hearing it. I'm sure you guys are hearing it.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
Like, meet the new year, same as the old year. What has changed? Nothing has changed. They didn't do enough in the offseason. A lot of I told you so. And they're looking at the schedule for the rest of April and into May. And they're like, you know what? Wake me up in July. And if this team is, nipping at the heels of the AL Central leader, maybe I'll invest a little bit more, but I'm definitely not right now. I've seen enough already.
Yeah. And if it's
Nick,
anything
are
like
you
last
living
year,
in?
What's that?
Go ahead.
Am I
Tim.
living?
I was just going to say, if it's anything like last year, they'll get hot right around the All-Star break and rope all these people back in to piss them off all over again. Go ahead, Vinny.
That's true. I was just going to ask Nick if he's living and dying with every result. Because, for me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's my problem.
So you get mad when they lose? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. And I kind of have, that is softened just a little bit because with Locked On, I'm doing a daily podcast no matter what, whether I like the result or I don't like the result. I am still going to bring a passionate take day in and day out. So, but I still get crushed, and I sometimes get crushed, at bat at a time, inning at a time. I've always been like that. I've tried to stop. I've tried to say, well, I'm going to passively be a fan years ago, and I can't. I absolutely can't. And I tell people, look, you got to fan however you want to fan. No one should force you to fan a certain way or get you excited about April or talk you off the ledge in April. No. You do it how you want to do it. Okay. But, I just can't help it. Like, this is how I am, and I'm going to bring it that way. But I know that's not for everybody, and I have to absolutely understand that.
I hear you,
We
man.
totally get that. We make the put on your socks video every single day, no matter. The only time we might not is if there's a day game a day and the night before something happened where we got busier. But for the most part, we will do put on your socks every single day this year. And I'm finding myself this team's just not that good. So what am I going to sit here and get super pissed, 90 times this season if they end up being a 90 loss team? That this rebuild is probably, they have all this talent, but they can't stay healthy. It's becoming more of a pattern than an accident. It's just becoming very numbing when they lose, but every time they win, I'm also that game against Minnesota really reeled me back in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, towards the end of last year, it was me I feel like I'm just bringing you the information, folks. This is what happened. Towards the end of September, it's here's the facts, just the facts. Don't kill the messenger. This is where we're at right now. And I can kind of give you my spin a little bit, but at that point, it's what does it matter? I mean, we're done now. They got swept by, what was it? The Guardians in late September. And that showed me everything. And then they lost it.
Yeah. It's a tough pill to swallow. It's just, sometimes I'm a loss for words with this team, and put on your socks. Sometimes it's really easy to happen. But real quick, before we move out of the segment, I wanted to highlight two other performances on the week. Grandal did well. We talked about it already. He had 333, but had nothing to show for it except for 2 ribbies and 1 run scored. And I wanted to give an honorable mention out of the bullpen, a guy that did incredible this week that's not getting much coverage. I want to talk about Gregory Santos. Had a great week. 2 1/3, 0 earned runs, 2 strikeouts, only 1 walk. The bullpen was bad this week, but Gregory Santos was not. And I just figured it was worth highlighting because the pen wasn't good this week, and he was. So I don't know. I was impressed with him from what I saw.
He's got some stuff. I mean, I think he can hit 100 miles per hour. He was impressive in spring training. I'm actually was really surprised that he made the club because I kept hearing about Avila and our Rule 5 pick, and this is going to be the guy because they took, a risk on him. But I like that they went with Santos because you got a power arm. So hopefully he keeps that up.
I certainly hope so. Something's got to give with this bullpen, man, until we get Crochet and Hendricks back. And, Crochet is probably a little closer. Well, who knows? It's Hendricks might come back before we all know it, and he'll be tearing a wall down and just being his normal self, which is an amazing story in itself. But let's dive into the week upcoming ahead with this tough schedule starting to get in place and this week's White Sox Weekly. Yeah, the schedule doesn't get much easier for the White Sox from here, guys. We get 3 against the Phillies, who are starting to wake up from their slumber at the start of the year. Not ready yet, but Bryce Harper's on his way back. I don't know if you guys saw this, but apparently he's going to be learning first base to get more at bats and less likely to injure himself. I feel like we should probably have Eloy Jimenez do the same thing, but that's a whole other conversation for another time. But White Sox, Philadelphia is a good team. No matter what happened the first week and a half of the season, they're a much better team than they've played. And then they get the best team in baseball right now in the Tampa Bay Rays in Tampa at home. Then we get to play them back here a little bit later in the month. But it's a brutal schedule, guys. The Phillies will be an exciting matchup tomorrow. Vin, is there anything you're looking for in this Phillies series to get a rise out of the White Sox? I know we get Dylan Cease on the bump.
In this Phillies series am worried. The White Sox give up a lot of home runs to a lot of teams, and the Phillies have guys that can just absolutely hit it to Pluto. Trey Turner finally got his first. Kyle, I'm expecting a huge series from Kyle Schwarber. Like, I honestly wouldn't be shocked if he hits 3 home runs in 3 games. Like, he's been a masher already. So, and I sound like such a pessimist. What an a-hole I've become. Honestly, who even am I? But like, Castellanos healthy. I know Harper's learning to play first and whatnot. But like, you got Lynn and Giolito tomorrow projected, and then Clevenger on Wednesday. I hope those guys keep the home run ball down. But what happens when they go to, the bullpen? What happens if Kyle Schwarber's facing off against Jake Diekman late in the game and the game's tied or they're up 1 or something? Like, it's just the National League champions are in town. I hope I'm wrong. This schedule, man. And this Phillies team, I've never seen the Phillies live, so that's another reason I'm excited to go Wednesday. That's one of the only teams in the league I've yet to lay my eyes on, and I'm excited to do so. Obviously, they're a National League team, so I would have to go see them at Wrigley if, I really wanted to see them most years. But it should be fun from that aspect, but they got some bombers in that lineup. And you look at the pitching. Falter, the stats aren't that good, but Wheeler, we know what he can do. He was really, really good last year and the year before. Taijuan Walker, a medium start for him. They're all in the 4s for ERA, as I'm seeing, but some hefty strikeout numbers from Walker and Wheeler. So, it's going to be an interesting series to watch, but I'm not optimistic about it.
Yeah, definitely not looking forward to it myself either. But, this team, maybe they'll surprise us, and then we have to go play Tampa Bay in Tampa. Just a rough overall week for the boys. I know we don't have to dwell too much on the upcoming schedule because I know we're all not feeling overly optimistic about it, but we could just mosey on into the fun part, which is our pick to click. So, we can pick. We're going to make our picks. We'll get Nick's here in a second, and then we'll let him go shortly afterward. But let's dive into this week's pick to click. So we're tracking this now. Every week we put out a poll on the following Sunday afternoon until showtime the next day, and we let Twitter decide. So I finally won this week. I had Grandal last week, and I was up between Grandal, Vaughn, and then Benintendi, and the poll was really close, but I managed to edge it out. But we're going to let our guest go first, and Nick. So you get your pick of the crop from anyone on the team, Nick. Who's your pick to click heading into this week of White Sox baseball?
Okay, I'm gonna take this guy because I called the 2023 season was going to be the year of the Vaughn, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from Andrew Vaughn. Obviously the home runs aren't there, but he's getting on base. I feel like he's having quality at bats. When he doesn't get something that he can absolutely drive, he has a very Paulie Canerco-esque at bat where he just takes it to, just dumps it to right field. You know, he's learning and becoming a better hitter. I think Andrew Vaughn is going to break out, and I think we're going to see some home runs from him this week.
I love it, man. I would love
Nick
some home runs
loves
this week.
Andrew Vaughn.
I love him. I absolutely love him.
I could see the eyeballs getting
Yes.
posted this week when he hits his first home run of the season.
Yes,
It is happening.
Please
Oh,
let me do that.
Let's go. I can't wait. I'll be retweeting, quote tweeting how I'm pumped. I'm pumped.
I'm all in on it, baby. I mean, I was very excited. I did the White Sox charities like gift bag thing last year, and I got an Andrew Vaughn signed ball in there. I was pretty excited about that. So I'm rooting for Vaughn. I have him in a bunch of leagues in fantasy too. I know. I feel the energy in my veins. I love it.
They're winning the World Series. Screw it. Win in a row.
Andrew Vaughn. He's going to hit 500 this week with 7 bombs.
Love it. Yeah.
And if that happens, that'll be even better. But since I won last week, I'll take my pick. Yeah, right. 2-4 record for sure. I'm just going to ride the hot hand, and I feel like it'll continue into this week. I'm going to take Jake Berger, friend of the show, and all around good guy with a smoking hot bat right now. So I think Berger keeps cooking this week. A couple more dingers, hopefully more than a couple, but we'll see what happens. So I'm going to take Berger selfishly for myself this week. Zim and Vin tied in the poll. I don't know how that's even possible. I had 36% of the vote with Grandal, and they each had 32% of the vote with Benintendi and Vaughn. So I'll just toss Zim a bone and let him go next.
Oh, well, I guess I'll take it. I was hoping that Vinny would go first so I could just take the field, you know. But I guess I'll make a decision here. I'm tempted to take Benintendi again, just because he's been rising steadily over the last few weeks, and I feel like at a certain point he's going to finally hit that peak. And frankly, if this is it, if this is the peak, this 300 average, 3 runs, 2 RBIs over the course of a week, the Sox are in some trouble. So maybe it's just me projecting my hope onto him, saying, Benintendi, please carry the team for us. But somebody's got to do it at some point. And like I said, with him being on a steady rise, I think it's a good time to ride the I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm keeping the same
tidal wave.
Week. There you go.
All right, ride the tidal wave, Zim. I like it. So you're gonna go.
I was thinking of like roulette. You know, you just keep it on.
Let
black.
it ride.
Yeah,
let it ride.
Yep. There you go.
Let it ride. Put it all on black, Zim. I like it, especially against the Phillies tomorrow. You got to put it all on black. Vinny, what do you got for your pick to click for the week?
I hope I lose because all 3 of you picked people that would make fun social media moments. If Andrew Vaughn hits a home run,
I told you guys last week we should all pick Andy, Andrews.
Oh, maybe I will. But with Andrew Vaughn, Nick will be hilarious. I'm tweeting every Jake Berger home run this season, so that'll be funny for me. Joe, Zim with Benintendi. I think his first home run in a White Sox uniform will be good Twitter content, so I'm looking forward to that too. Whenever it does come, he hasn't hit his first home run yet, right? He's still waiting for that first home run. I'm good. I'll make the third Andrew. We'll do the 3 Andrew trifecta here with Andrew Benintendi, Andrew Vaughn, and Elvis Andrews.
Ooh, I like it, man. I like it.
Let's go, Elvis.
Hopefully all 4 of these guys have a great week. I mean, I'm gonna
Elvis. They need a guy like Elvis if you're gonna win a series against Tampa Bay Rays.
Look, the Phillies, their pitching is not that great, honestly, and their bullpen is just maybe a little bit better than the White Sox, and that's not saying much because the Sox is 30th. So there's your opportunity. Tampa's got to get cold eventually, right? So why not when the Sox are in town? That's your strategy.
God they lost the game before coming to the White Sox, though, because they would have rolled through the White Sox 3-0 if they were undefeated. They would have
no
swept them and made some kind of crazy
Nope.
MLB history or something.
If the White Sox had to play them and they were still undefeated, I truly believe the White Sox would pull it out of their butts and sweep them somehow. It'd be the most White Sox thing ever to play like super mediocre all season long and then take a 3-game sweep against an undefeated team.
Like when the 1972 Dolphins stepped it up and took down the Bears that were trying to, or I'm sorry, the 84 or 85 Dolphins. 85 Dolphins defended the 1972 legacy and took down the Bears in that Monday night game. Sure.
Not a lot of people remember the 06 Dolphins gave the Bears the first loss that season too.
Yeah.
They were
Dolphins?
They were like 8-0 or something, and they beat them. The Bears ended up losing 1 or 2 more games en route to the Super Bowl, but the Dolphins handed them their first loss, both on Monday night too, which is what the night is. So the Sox are so screwed now.
Dolphins have a weird history of that.
They are certainly screwed, but we were not screwed. We were graced with the presence of Nick joining us on the show tonight. Nick, we appreciate you giving us so much of your time. And before you go, why don't you talk a little bit about your podcast, where people can find you on social media and what you got going on?
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so very much. This was an absolute blast. Hopefully we can do it again. And the Sox are first place the next time we talk. I've got my weekly White Sox podcast with my very good friend, Pat Hester. Good Guys Talk Back. We've been doing it. This is our 5th year we've been doing it. And then Locked On Sox, daily podcast, Monday through Friday. Find the podcast absolutely everywhere. We've got a YouTube channel. And then I'm on Twitter at Nick_GGTB.
Nick, can I ask you one question before you go on a personal level?
Yeah.
You say you've been doing this for 5 years, and the Sox have like progressively gotten worse over those 5 years. Is it tough to keep going, each season? We're only on year 3, and
it is. You have to, I know this is weird or maybe even corny to say, but you have to absolutely love it no matter what. And I mean, I'm like a 4th generation, White Sox fan. I was born into it, and it's all I know. I mean, I eat, sleep, drink, even in the off season. And so it's therapeutic. I have found it to be therapeutic, like over the years of like, just at least get it out somewhere. Hopefully people are listening and it provides some entertainment or help to them. But Good Guys Talk Back was born in the winter meetings of 2018 during the whole Manny Machado, Bryce Harper situation. So that podcast and kind of my, early stages of podcasting was just born in absolute, anger. And, it was, so that's kind of how it started, and it's kind of ridden the roller coaster.
It's been quite a roller coaster, but we appreciate all the daily content, man. And you're one of the best follows on Twitter. Make sure you give Nick a follow. Check out all his platforms, Locked On Sox, Good Guys Talk Back. And Nick, we just look forward to having you on again later in the season, hopefully with some better results on the field. But nonetheless, when I'm at a game, we'll have to make sure we meet up for a beer or a hot dog or something.
Yeah, they've got some great food options this year. Yeah, I'm just a few blocks away. I'm there probably more than I should be, but hopefully we're talking when there's some better things going on for a White Sox. Thank you guys so much. This was an absolute blast.
Can't thank you enough, man. Absolutely. Have a great night, and as always, go White Sox.
Go Sox.
All right, Nick, take it easy, man. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Thank
Great
you.
guest, and Nick. And if you guys haven't followed him, make sure you give him a follow. Of course, you can follow him on all his platforms. You can follow him at Nick_GGTB. And then I'll put it up on the screen one more time. You can check him out in his podcast at Good Guys TB and at Locked On Sox on Twitter and anywhere you find podcasts. Can't thank Nick enough for giving us so much time tonight. Vinny, seriously, one of the best follows on Sox Twitter.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I don't say that about any guest we have on. Who do I have in the same vein as Nick Murawski in terms of my favorite follows? I really enjoy Beef Loaf because he kind of brings like a unique taste to White Sox content, like with the hot tubs and the 108ing and all that stuff, like with My Sox Summer and Chirizi, like the tournament. but I can't think of anybody I hold to the same pedestal of my own personal entertainment. And I'm not trying to sound creepy or anything like that. I don't want Nick to get a restraining order on me. I'm not going to follow him. But
You should.
if he was if I see him at the game, I would love. Oh, it would make me feel so good to buy Nick Murawski a beer. It would be like buying like Justin Bieber or like a big celebrity a beer. I'm not even kidding. Like, I don't know. I'm just a huge fan. His tweets. It's a unique way of fanning, and the Locked On Network is awesome. The Locked On Devils guy is a writer for Pucks and Pitchforks at Fansided, so I've learned about their network a little bit too through that. And he has media credentials. The Locked On Devils guy, he's at every Devils game, and I don't know. I just am a big fan of the whole thing. So thanks to Nick for coming on. He's really good at what he does too. He presents like the way he talks about the Sox with such like grace, and I'm getting into a Nick Murawski love fest here, but
Sorry,
really
Nick,
good
we
stuff.
love you, buddy. Appreciate all the time from you. But we've gotten to the point where we can talk about some interesting hot takes or questions in our segment that we like to call the Guaranteed Take. So I got two of them for today, gents, and there's one of them that I thought of during the show that I added I got music playing somehow on my phone. Where's that coming from? Do you guys hear that?
Kinda. I think I heard it like through your headphone.
Yeah, it's somehow I think my iTunes is playing when I close my headphones. So keep stalling for 1 second while I figure out where this is coming from.
Joe, if you don't figure it out soon, I'm just going to start talking nicely about Nick Murawski again.
I got it. I think I got it. You guys can still hear me, right?
There you go.
All right. I think I had my Spotify still open. Somehow I just got it playing music. I don't even know what it was playing. It sounded like Owl City or something. I don't know. But nonetheless, sorry, this is the one that I thought of during the show for our Guaranteed Take. We've seen Bryce Harper. I can't say it. The second time I butchered his name. Bryce Harper for the Phillies. Rumored this week that he's going to start taking reps at first base, learning how to play first base, in an effort to not injure himself in the outfield and make him more of an everyday player. Should Eloy do the same thing for the White Sox?
No. He does not have the hamstrings for it. Literally, that is it. How many hamstring injuries has this guy had since joining the team? Because I know it's been, off the top of my head, at least 3. In addition to oblique, in addition to pectorals, in addition to this, that, and the other thing. And what are you going to do the first time he gets a foul pop-up that goes over by the tarp? Because he's not nearly as athletic as Anthony Rizzo. He's not going to go climb on the wall and catch it. No, I'm totally against the idea. I think that for some guys, it's a great idea. Jake Berger, Albert Pujols is a classic example of a guy transitioning from the outfield to first base, probably the most successful one in history. And then, like you've mentioned just now with Bryce Harper, for some guys, it makes sense. For guys who are already kind of injury prone and not just like fluky injuries, I don't think it's a good spot, especially when it's leg injuries, because of the amount of flexibility, like physical flexibility needed to play the position.
You line, Vin?
Yeah, I completely agree with Zim and he brought up Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, another really good one, third base to first base over the years. Just the reason he moving over to first, Bryce Harper, is because he probably could play the outfield, but like, why risk it? He's so athletic though that he can move over to a different position, but Eloy's just not. The reason he's not playing outfield isn't because, he's trying to come back from an early injury. He's trying to, not get injured at all. Bryce Harper, he's so athletic, and he's been known to be super duper crazy athlete. That's not Eloy. Eloy hits baseballs to Pluto, and so does Harper. But like, We know Harper's good at defense. We know Eloy stinks at defense. So why would we try to teach him a new position now just to get him on the field at some point? Like Andrew Vaughn and Gavin Sheets aren't even good enough for that. So, hopefully they have a better chance to get better, but that's where I'm at on it.
Harper also played catcher before coming to the bigs. He was drafted as a catcher. So we know he's got freaky athletic ability just from being able to go from sitting behind the plate to playing center field in the professional game. Like that's wild to think about. And the other thing to think about, Eloy's playing DH and still getting hurt. I mean,
this is true.
It's not a good sign. Eloy almost feels to me like trade bait at this point in his career. Get offload him to somebody who sees the potential and wants to develop him, because he's part of this group of White Sox players that's like, oh my God, they've got so much potential. And it's like, but when is it going to pay off? Eloy had a great rookie year, and ever since then has been kind of and I hate to say it, but Robert's in the same boat.
Except for when he came back from injury last year. He was unbelievable.
He was. But he was injured for how much of the year before doing that? He only played like 60 games last year. No, I think it was 80, but still. He played half a season. But Moncada, Robert, Jimenez, Vaughn, I still think has a year or two before he reaches that point. Colas is still a rookie, so we can't count him yet, but so far you kind of wonder, considering he was sold as this like phenom, and he's kind of an above average right field rookie.
We'll see what he does the rest of the year. I'm not going to be too quick to judge Colas, but we'll see what happens there. But I love the takes there, guys, and I got one more for this guaranteed take, and then we'll wrap things up on the show. But I'm just curious, because this has been something that's been toying with my brain. If the Sox are sellers at the deadline, should they move Tim Anderson and make a move to Montgomery at short? Vinnie Parisi?
I would move pretty much anyone. Montgomery's injured too, so I'm wondering if he's just got the White Sox curse. But I would have everyone on the table, including Dylan Cease. Like, if you're gonna the rebuild has already failed in my mind. It just has. I'm really sorry to say, and I would have never said that even 2 weeks ago. I have changed my opinion over the last 14 days, and that's what I was telling Nick Murawski. Like, I can't live and die with every loss. I'll watch every game. I got to write about it for Southside Showdown. I got to put on your Sox. I got to do this show. I have every reason to watch, but I'm not going to go to bed pouting if they lose like I would have if, let's say, the Devils did this season. If they lost at any point this year, I was pissed because they were a really good team. And it's kind of the opposite for the White Sox right now. So, yeah, I would move anyone, Tim Anderson included. The reason the rebuild failed is because the guys who are supposed to be outstanding are outstanding, but they're often hurt, and that stunted a lot of their growth. Robert or Jimenez haven't been the same, other than a couple stretches here and there since the end of the 2020 season, or I guess at the beginning of 2021 before they got hurt really good. But I don't know. I don't see it with this group. So if they're bad, like really bad, like fourth or third in the AL Central is going to be bad because the Tigers and Royals are even worse. But I would move anyone. The only people I might not touch are Colson Montgomery, Noah Schultz, some of their other top prospects. Even Colas, you're probably not going to get enough for him worth moving because of what he can develop into. If you're going to try and keep winning, then I wouldn't trade anyone. But if you are in the same, to me, watching Jimenez go to another team, stay healthy, and hit 40 bombs would be one of the most painful things I think I could watch. But at the same time, anything to make the White Sox better will be, fun, because I can really go back to being a prospect guy again. It wouldn't bother me one bit to watch the White Sox rebuild again. I'll just watch minor league baseball all summer. I've done it how many times in my life? So,
Hey, Vin,
whatever they end up
MLB
doing.
TV package
Yep.
includes AAA this year, so I've been watching a couple of those games too.
Nice.
Hell
I
yeah.
did
The
not know
Charlotte
that.
Knights
I
have
might
those
actually
new
turn that
jerseys.
on.
Yeah, the Charlotte
that?
Knights have their new jerseys too.
Yeah, they're
They're
sick.
the Charlotte colors where all the teams have matching jerseys now. North Carolina, the Carolina Panthers, the Hurricanes haven't caught on yet, but most of the teams around that area, well, the Hurricanes are in Raleigh though. The Charlotte area teams all have that color, and man, they're cool. So I'll watch minor league baseball again.
Man, how clean would the Hurricanes jerseys look if they were in those colors, though?
I know.
I mean, black and red for the Hurricanes. That's not. I'm getting totally detracted, but like,
You're right though,
No, you're
and they
right,
play in
man.
the same division as the Devils, who are black and red. We need a blue and white team in the Metropolitan Division. I agree.
Hey, we'll see. Maybe it'll happen.
That'd be cool.
we should
no.
we should start petitioning right now.
All right.
I
They
like
just
the
won their
petition,
playoff
but-
game though. They're not going to change
Well,
mid
there you
playoffs.
go.
They like the vibes right now.
That's
Yeah.
very true. I wonder what that's like, winning a playoff game. I feel like Detroit Lions fans over here, guys. Like, it's been rough, and
Oof.
they're obviously not
Someday.
afraid to. They're obviously not afraid to trade players to get to where they want to be, and maybe it is working out for them. So maybe the Sox should do the same thing, so that they get out of this purgatory that we seem to be stuck in.
You're
We're
talking
all
about the
orphans and we're
Lions?
No, the White Sox.
the White Sox. We haven't had a playoff win, and we feel like Lions fans. I was just saying, like we're like all the orphans, and Annie's singing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow," but it's never tomorrow.
It never comes.
I'm going to throw a future on the Lions to win the North. Like that's I honestly think that's possible.
I like
The
that.
division sucks, so you might as well.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a whole conversation for a whole nother time. You could probably catch Dan and
certainly
Aldo
is.
talking about that tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. They got a fun show. Make sure you tune in for that. But we had a hell of a show tonight. We got to thank our guest, Nick Murawski, for sticking around with us and talking White Sox baseball all night long. Gentlemen, we've reached the point of the show where we're going to dive into our shout-outs. And Zim, we'll let you go first. I know you have a big week coming up, man. Tell us about that. We're very excited for you.
First
And
off,
how was your
shout out-
bachelor party? You have to throw that in.
Oh, it was awesome. But first off, shout out to you guys and our audience for bearing with me through this. I have slept like crap all weekend long. So I'm sure that I'm kind of rambling and not making sense at certain points. So thank you to everybody for bearing with us. Nick was an awesome guest, so I'm sure he held it together just fine when I got incoherent. Honestly, I had a blast with Nick. Big shout out to him. I would love to have him on again sometime in the near or distant future. Honestly, it seems like he bleeds this just like the three of us do, so he's not going anywhere anytime soon. As far as the bachelor party goes, we had a great time. We went up to a buddy's cabin about 2 hours outside the city, just pitch black after it got dark out. It felt like nothing existed outside of that little cabin that we were in, and we just had a blast. So, big shout out to the four guys who went up there with me and made it a memorable night and weekend. And, they all are playing their own parts in the wedding, which is super, super great of them. The guys I went up with are my best man, one of my groomsmen, our officiant, and our DJ. So everybody has their role, and that's all out of the goodness of their hearts and everything. So big shout out to those guys, as well as to my family, my partner's family, and everybody who has helped us through all of this to get to this point. I will not be on the show next week. So as I mentioned last week, Joe, I really trust you to bring in a solid guest to hold over the tide while I'm gone.
We'll see what we can do.
I hope to be back the following week, but we will see. We will see. I'm not going to make any promises or commitments that far in advance right now. At this point, my calendar ends on the last day of my honeymoon, and I really have no plans beyond that at this point.
Where are you going?
We're just headed up to Steamboat Springs. It is another mountain town here in Colorado. Lots of natural hot springs, lots of beautiful scenic places to visit. Has the small town vibes, but at the same time is also a ski resort town and a summer destination for a lot of hiking and biking trails as well. So I know we're kind of going during mud season, but I think it'll still be a really, really good time. there's
Yeah,
all
man.
kinds of stuff to do up there. So
I think I speak for both Vinny and myself. We're super happy for you, man. Really excited for you. And hopefully you have just an awesome weekend. I wish I could have been there. Just didn't work out, but next time I see you for sure, we'll celebrate.
right. No, absolutely. I mean, of course, the invitation would have been extended to you both if I thought that you could have come. But as soon as Joe said no, Vinny, you by de facto didn't want you to be alone and just awkward around my whole family.
Hello, the Zimmerman family. My name is Vinny Parisi. So happy to see all of you.
Hold up real quick. Hold up real quick, everybody. I got a film put on your socks. The White Sox are, God damn it. Go, go, go.
I mean, I
Zim,
would.
get in the frame. Get in the frame, Zim.
I've recorded that thing
No.
in some weird ass places. So
I might do tomorrow's in the toilet.
they
How they're
lose.
playing.
I know that you guys are not there for lack of love, so you will be there in spirit, and I know that much.
Yeah, man. We're wishing the best for you, man. It's going to be a fun weekend for you. So good luck there. And Vinny, I can let you go next with your shout out.
Absolutely. My girlfriend Katie, of course, is always my number one shout out. Wouldn't be doing any of this without her. Shout out to Joey Parisi. The Boston Bruins took a 1-0 series lead over the Florida Panthers. So I know he's at home super pumped about it. My mom, my dad, fucking Foster watches every show I do now. So absolutely fucking Foster. I know I'm not allowed to swear on this show, but I just did because of Foster. And then shout out Zim. Man, I hope you have a great time this weekend. I wish you and your family nothing but love and happiness, and that's going to be really, really fun. So good for you, man. I'm super stoked, and I can't wait to hear all about it when you get back. I mentioned to you many times that you're one of my favorite people, so I can't wait to hear about it, and, man, that's going to be fun. We'll hold the fort down for you as well as we possibly can when you're gone. It's going to be tough, but we'll manage.
Yeah, man, we'll get by. Well, I leaned on Vinny last minute today for I'll start my shout out without shout out Vinny. He helped secure us a guest for today's show, and
I have an
maybe
idea
one
for
the
next
future.
week, by the way. We'll see.
All right. That's all right. Well, I appreciate it, man. Shout out to you, Vinny, for helping me out in that respect and all the put on your sock stuff as always. And of course, I'm going to shout out Mr. Zim, the upcoming wedding and his lovely wife and his kids and just all the above. Just awesome time for you, man. Just so happy for you. So congratulations there. Of course, I'm going to shout out my beautiful wife, Catherine, our daughter, Audrey, who is like the cutest thing in the world. She's just moving and grooving. Last week, she was really close to walking. This week, she's doing like 15 steps at a time. And then she just kind of like gets on her hands and knees and starts crawling. But she's so close for me to have to chase her everywhere she goes. She's adorable. It's the most fun thing in the world, and I can't wait to watch her grow up even more. Of course, I shout out my Great Dane Maverick. He's a nuthead, and he loves it. So my house has a bunch of wild turkeys that come around multiple times a day in the back field, and every time they come out, you'd think that he's just going absolutely nuts, like he did a line of crack or a line of cocaine. And this dog just goes up to the window, and every once in a while I'll let him go out there, and he just runs around the fence and just kind of barks at him. But it's the funniest thing in the world. So shout out to Maverick. And of course, like I said, my beautiful wife as always. I love you all very much.
That's funny, Joe. We also ran into some wild turkeys this weekend, but we didn't go outside. So
they don't come inside my fence because I don't have an air, so they're on the outside. But there's a boatload of them, man. There's like one of the big boys. He's like a big turkey. The big gobbler. He's freaking massive. And then there's all these small, like the women turkey that are just all in front of him. And there's this one big stud. He's like strutting his stuff. It's really hilarious. Did you know turkeys can fly and land in trees? I didn't know that until recently.
I did. My sister witnessed it firsthand, and that's how I learned, and she was terrified. So
yeah, I saw it during a snowstorm. There was a big snowstorm in the area, not recently, but a couple of 3-4 months ago. And this big turkey two of them flew into a tree. One of them landed on a branch and the other one landed on a branch. And then one of the branches cracked and the turkey fell to the ground, and then he just ran off like he was embarrassed. So
they're not very smart creatures.
Yeah, they're laying eggs behind my house too. So I'm sure that's going to be interesting.
Very nice.
But
sounds like a delicious breakfast.
Yeah, man, I'll have some turkey sausage tomorrow morning. No, but no, shout out to my family. Love you guys. And you guys for doing the show with me every week. And of course, Olo Gandia, the man with the plan, the barkeeper, the guy that lets us do this every single week. And everyone in the chat room. So Foster, my dad, our buddy Travis was here. PZ is always at every show. Love you guys. Some guy, Steven Z, I never heard of him in the chat room. Oh, wait, never mind. That's Zim. But I can't ever call you Steven again. I have to call you Zim all the time. So, but nonetheless, it's been a heck of a show, guys. Can't thank you enough for hanging out with us all night. Huge thanks again to our guest, Nick Murawski. Check him out and Locked On Sox and Good Guys Talk Back. And that's all I got, guys. These White Sox, they got to do something for us. It's getting really hard to keep it together watching them. Something's got to give. Perhaps it'll be this week, guys. I don't know. What do you think? I hope so. I'm trying to stall until I find the credits because I can't find them because they don't look like they're here. So that's interesting. I didn't delete them, so that's a problem. But here they are. I found them. I just can't read. But anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. For the South Burbs Hitmen, I'm Joe Mandel. In the top right corner is Vinnie Parise. And in the top left is the soon-to-be married man. That's Steven Zimmerman. I called him by his full name. He can't do anything about it. He's getting married. He's going to hear it a lot this week. But go White Sox. We'll see you guys next week. It's time to win some games. Let's get out of here.